Sorry to keep you waiting tonight, especially those of you online for waiting as well. And we're happy everybody's here tonight, and also all of the folks that are online, we really appreciate. Sorry, I'm getting feedback. I'm hearing my voice twice. It's hard enough to hear it once, so don't want to hear it twice. Thanks. Anyway, thank you for being here. This is our second annual town hall on fire preparation and evacuation, and it is so important, I think, to our entire community that we're prepared, informed, and know what to do in these horrific times that can happen with catastrophic wildfire. So I so appreciate the partnership you see in front of us tonight with having all of our public safety folks here to work with the community to answer your questions and to help you prepare better for those situations. We do have Spanish interpreters, so if there is anyone who needs those, the earpieces are in the back of the room. And tonight we're going to start with our introductions, and we are very honored tonight to have Sheriff Wayne Wu of Placer County and CAL FIRE, Placer County Fire Chief Brian Estes that are going to address us at the beginning, and then we're going to go to a panel discussion with everyone else. So I'd love to invite our Sheriff and Fire Chief up here to address all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Gustafson, and thank you all for being here tonight. Like she mentioned, my name's Wayne Wu, and I am your Placer County Sheriff. I'm in about the second year of my term, and I can tell you one of the priorities when I took office was really increasing the amount of collaboration we have with all of our stakeholders in public safety. And I'm proud to say that I feel like we've made a lot of great strides, specifically up here in the Tahoe Basin. Last year, we held our first ever Joint Unified Command training up here in the Tahoe Basin. Just last week, we repeated that again with even more participants. I think you'll see a little video clip highlight of the training last week during the presentation today. But I can't speak highly enough of all of our partners that are up here on stage. We all have such a unique role during emergency management, and specifically wildfires and wildfire evacuations. And as law enforcement, we have the statutory authority and responsibility for the evacuations, but we have to work collaboratively with the fire service, the fire behavior experts to make sure we plan accordingly. And I know, like every community we have in Placer County, people in the Lake Tahoe Basin have concerns. Down on the West Slope, we heard about concerns for 20 years from our Forest Hill community that there was no way we could ever evacuate Forest Hill in the event of a catastrophic wildfire. And I'm proud to say, just probably about 18 months ago, we had the mosquito fire down the hill, and through the collaboration, the training, the work we did with our community and with our partners, we were able to evacuate 11,000 people off of the Forest Hill Divide in 4 hours. And I'm very proud of that accomplishment, and it really goes to the preparation, the training, and having an engaged community. So thank you so much for being here, and I want to thank Supervisor Gustafson for her leadership and really for putting these town halls together. And with that, I'd like to introduce my partner, Placer County Fire Chief and CAL FIRE Chief Brian Estes.
Thank you, Wayne. And thank you again to Supervisor Gustafson. I stand up here this evening as the CAL FIRE Unit Chief on the east side of Placer County, representing one of the really true fabrics of the fire service network that we have in the Tahoe Basin and in Eastern County, and that's really represented by my partners up here at this table, from Chief McKechnie, Chief Chisholm, representing both Truckee and Olympic Valley, and Chief Layton and Jason Gabeau from North Star and North Tahoe, and we work so hard with our law enforcement partners. Wayne and I work every single day together, and our troops work. We don't manage a single incident that's not in unified command. And I want everyone to understand that exists up here. Tahoe is a special place, but it's also not unlike so many places around the state. And the folks up here are concerned about wildland fire and evacuations, and we should be. We should be all over the state of California, because it is one of the primary concerns that we have living in some of the most beautiful areas in the foothills and the high country of California. But no community and no town, no city, and no regional area is prepared to just evacuate or stand on its own without the collaboration and the cooperation and the expertise of fire service and emergency service and law enforcement partners. In my 35-year career, I've dealt with hundreds and hundreds of incidents where we have evacuated hundreds of thousands of people, and it's never, ever been done without collaboration and coordination between state, local, federal, and our law enforcement partners. So I will leave you with the fact that this panel up here represents our commitment to that, our continued charge with that commitment, and we will do our very best to answer some of those critical questions for you tonight. So thank you to the panel. Thank you, Supervisor Gustafson, and for the Board of Supervisors' support, and thanks to my partner, Wayne.
Thank you both, and really appreciate your leadership and the teamwork that we're seeing happen with our model, with our integrated OES system now with Placer County. We're very proud of that effort and incredible leadership we have. So a few housekeeping items. We're going to have the panelists give their own introductions, but I did want to let you know we have some other folks in the audience who may be able to answer questions as we go tonight. We have Stephanie Holloway, our Deputy CEO, back in the back. We have Chris Hazen from our HHS department. Hi, Chris. Matt Randall, Deputy Public Works Director. Thanks, Matt. And we have Tony Laliotis, TCPUD, Director of Utilities, and Charlie Miller from Olympic Valley PSD, General Manager. I'm probably going to get Lee's last name wrong, but Lee Kilbasa? Almost like the sausage, okay. Liberty Utilities, Emergency Manager, thanks. Sorry if I garbled that up. And our IT staff at the back of the room, Jeremy and Visali, you'll be running the IT. We have Scotty from PIO staff here, and then our Spanish interpreters at the back. Audrey Vaughn will be helping, along with Brandy Dunkel, with the Zoom questions that'll come in. So thank you. And then we are going to take questions after the presentation. So there are comment cards. You can fill one out. If you're not comfortable asking a question in public, some aren't. Others are very comfortable questioning us in public, so we're welcome to take those. And we'll try to make sure we hit everybody in the room and make sure we rotate through the room so everybody can ask a question. I did want to mention again that the Placer County Board of Supervisors last year permanently moved forward with assigning both law enforcement and fire into our OES department. This was a model we felt, given catastrophic issues, that we needed to integrate it right directly into our OES office. And we are very proud of that model. We are one of the first counties in the state to do that. And it's so important to have that consistent training and communication between the members of our team. It just helps us with all kinds of emergencies. We're here tonight talking about fire and evacuation, but sometimes we've had many other emergencies, avalanches, mudslides, all kinds of weather situations in this area that have caused us to need to work together and use that team to help us address the issues. So with that, I'm going to just pass the mic, let each of you introduce yourselves and your roles.
Thank you, Supervisor. I'm your Placer Sheriff Station Commander in Tahoe City. My name is Lieutenant Don Nevins. Happy to be here.
Thanks, Don. My name is Lieutenant Ty Connors, and I'm the Law Branch in the Placer County Office of Emergency Management.
Dave Atkinson. I'm the Assistant Director of Emergency Services for Placer County.
Good evening. I'm Jim Hudson. I'm the Deputy Chief in charge of operations for the CAL FIRE Nevada Yuba Placer Unit.
Good evening. Ryan Westner, Assistant Chief of the Placer County Office of Emergency Services, Fire Branch.
Good evening. Chris Rarden, Lieutenant of the Truckee CHP Office.
Brent Armstrong. I serve as Division Chief Fire Marshal for North Tahoe and Meeks Bay Fire Protection Districts.
Good evening. My name is Brad Chisholm. I'm the Fire Chief for Olympic Valley Fire Department.
Hi, I'm Kevin McKechnie, Fire Chief, Truckee Fire Protection District. Thanks for having me.
Well, we really appreciate you all being here tonight and participating in this presentation. So I'm going to go ahead and let the presentation start. And I believe that you all know who's going first.
Yeah. Go ahead, next slide. Oh, who's got the clicker? On the podium.
Is there a clicker? Oh. I can grab it. Thanks, Karen.
All right, well, I'm going to kick off our presentation here. As has been mentioned by several folks this evening already, wildfire is certainly a consideration and a significant hazard in the Tahoe Basin, and really anywhere where we have in the wildland-urban interface or intermix, wherever you have a mix of residential that sort of interleaves into the forested areas, certainly a concern there. And then, of course, that then leads to the question of what happens when you have some kind of wildland fire that drives, a significant number of people that need to evacuate. Also, has been talked about, Tahoe Basin is unique from both a topography, a weather and a climate situation, from the roadway and transportation network, and then, of course, the multitude of federal, state, and local agencies that would make up any kind of response and the jurisdictional authorities, and then you couple that with our community-based partners and our business community, and it's a truly interesting mix that we have to work with. As Cindy mentioned, there are lots of reasons, obviously wildfire is what we're talking about tonight, but there are lots of reasons why we potentially need to move a lot of people. Wildfire certainly at the top of the list of hazards, but we can't forget about earthquakes. There's also something called Sheish, which is actually a tidal wave on Lake Tahoe, and that has occurred. So those are kind of more regional type evacuations. Then more localized things like avalanche, which we've had a couple of those recently. Flooding or dam failures is our potential. And of course, hazardous materials. Those are all things that have occurred in the past that have driven the need to, move a small number of people. And then, of course, even though we're focused on evacuations tonight, we can't forget that there are also situations where the best thing to do is to keep people in their homes, and whether that's a hazardous materials, the poor air quality, and of course, we've had some terrible bouts of that over the last couple of summers, unfortunately, power outages, extreme temperatures, and winter storms. And so these are all the different types of things we in OES, these are the things that we're thinking about, that we're planning for, that we're training on, and that we're exercising for. As we get into the response side of things, something that's incredibly important to us, and one of the main reasons that the Emergency Operations Center exists is to provide joint information. And so just as you've heard about Unified Command, where the responders will get together out in the field and collaborate and communicate and coordinate, we're doing the exact same thing in the Emergency Operations Center with our public information folks, making sure that law and fire and utilities and whoever else is involved in a particular incident, that their public information is all coming from the same source, that it's good quality information, that it's timely, that it's accurate, and then it's coordinated. Because the last thing that we want for you is when you're trying to get good information from us about what's happening with an incident, we want that information to be clear, not any kind of conflicts or that, and that it's timely. And so these are all the things that we think about it when we talk about what we call a joint information center. And with that, I'm going to pass it to Chief Hudson.
Well, thank you. Again, I'm Jim Hudson, the Deputy Chief of Operations for the Nevada-Placer Unit. And I want to take a little bit deeper dive, and excellent opening remarks today by Sheriff Wu and Chief Estes on the collaboration, and really touched on our jurisdictional authorities and statutory responsibilities as agencies. And but when it comes to wildland fires and the wildland urban interface for any foothill or mountain community that we see across California, the first job that we have as CAL FIRE and in coordination is to suppress the fire while it's small, and that is our ultimate goal. Later in the presentation, we'll put up a fire history map recap for the area and show what I believe are some successes that we've had in wildland fire suppression within this area, because ultimately there's a goal. CAL FIRE's CAL FIRE's goal is to suppress all 95% of fires at 10 acres or less, and we've been very successful at that in this region, and we'll talk about a 20-year span here in a little bit. But when you look at what we have in collaboration, I feel that we're fortunate to live and work in a community that has regional fire protection and regional dispatch. Through the CAL FIRE ECC, we get coordination on the fire side, or Grass Valley Emergency Command Center, dispatching for 31 agencies across Nevada, Yuba, Placer counties, as well as the east side here. So the weight of response that we were able to get moving right away is significant for all 3 counties, and very specifically for the east side and the Tahoe Basin here, as well as the Truckee Basin as well. Throughout the year, when we, as fire season starts to descend on us, or what we call fire year now, we escalate our staffing levels based on the conditions. On any given day during fire season, you'll never see less than 22 engines staffed within the CAL FIRE Nevada Yuba Placer unit, with a myriad of other suppression equipment such as bulldozers, minimum of 3 up to 4, and we have a heavy presence of aircraft within this unit as well. We operate out of the Grass Valley Air Attack Base and Air Attack, and 2 tankers, Type 3 tankers that have a quick response over the Granite Curtain there at Donner Summit that can be here rapidly. And we coordinate also with the Tahoe National Forest for their rotor wing. And then we also have our rotor wing at Auburn headquarters. And actually this year up here on the east side, we've got a CH-47 Chinook with up to a 2,500 gallon payload stationed at the Truckee Airport. That'll be initial attack with some night capabilities for dropping water when safe, because safety is always the paramount when it comes to aviation operations, as well as our hand crews as well. And as we talk about response as we go through here, our standard response for an incident anywhere within the Nevada Yuba Placer unit is very heavy on the initial attack, and that's how we've been successful. We hear about the big fires. We hear about the river, the mosquito. Specifically up here over the last 20 years, we've heard about the emerald and the angora. But the amount of ignitions that we get annually across all the unit we've been very successful in meeting our goal of suppressing those fires. So any fire that you get in this region is going to get a battalion chief. It's going to get 6 fire engines. It's going to get 2 bulldozers. It's going to get 2 hand crews. And you can see it up there on the screen. I'm not going to read it all. But, like I said, to prevent evacuations, which is what our really goal is to discuss tonight, and the topic of the conversation is to suppress them while they're small. And we'll talk about the scale of the fires we've had over here in the east, we've had on the east side over the last 20 years. But it's the ones that you don't hear about. Not that any fire isn't dangerous, but when we're talking about mass evacuations, they don't all require that. And not to say a 1 or 5 acre fire can't displace some people and do some localized movement and out of an area until it's safe. But what we really want to focus on is that IA, and we do that in coordination with the jurisdictional authorities. Important to remember up here, outside of the state responsibility area, we've got federal responsibility area within the Tahoe National Forest and the Lake Tahoe Basin Management Unit, as well as the local government fire districts. So we work very collaboratively, and we both send a full weight of response to any of these fires. And as the sheriff said, the statutory responsibility for evacuation. From our standpoint as CAL FIRE with the jurisdictional authority to suppress wildland fires, our goal is to analyze that fire. Once we decide, we can recognize that there is a potential here, and it really comes down to the direction and rate of spread. And we're able to pass that information in unified command to the appropriate law enforcement agency anywhere in the state, specifically here to Placer County Sheriff and CHP for the roadways. And I know there's a lot of questions too that come up. Where do I go? When is it time to move? And I've said this at town halls over the years in Placer County and some public service announcements and videos we've done. There is no lever that we just pull and say move people. It is very choreographed, and every situation is very different, and it's dictated by the fire. Specifically here in this side of the north side of Lake Tahoe and the west slope in Placer County, fires either move up towards the ridge, or depending on the wind and the time of day, they move down towards the lake. And we recognize that. And as we talk about some of the fires that we've had over here 20 years that were significant damaging, they were relatively outside of the normal when it comes to our normal weather patterns here, some wind events, lightning busts, and And that's all the things we take into account when we are making the decision to evacuate. And we work with the Sheriff's Office, OEM, our local fire district partners as well. So it is all collaborative. Everybody has a role to play when it comes to evacuation. We all have our jurisdictional responsibilities, but our goal as CAL FIRE is to make sure that we are part of that team and blend all those jurisdictional responsibilities and make informed decisions. And that is how we've been successful, across the western slope and the eastern slope here in Placer County. So as I mentioned earlier, here we're looking at, and I know it can be hard to see, and I'd be happy to discuss this map with anybody after the presentation. Some of us were probably on these fires. But if you look at the west side and north shore right there, all the red there, that's our fire history of 5 acres or more over the last 20 years. And not to say that we haven't had a lot of fires and a lot of ignitions over the last 20 years, but we've been able to suppress them with our small through collaborative response and aggressive response. But and it's important to remember too that just because there's a fire and it is getting a little head of steam on it, and we're starting to prepare to have discussions, and we're working with law enforcement to make the decisions on how to evacuate. It's not always a movement of people. Sometimes it's a warning. Sometimes the best option is to shelter in place. We have a lake right here outside to us that's with beaches and wide open areas that are a great area to take temporary refuge. And it's not always it's typically not going to be the whole community at once. It's going to be choreographed to certain areas. And that's all based on the fire and time and reflex, and that's how we do business, and that's how we've been successful on that. And but just to reiterate what's said today, our success has come from rapid IA, rapid initial attack, and collaboration, and working within our jurisdictional responsibilities to make sure you or the public are informed if and when the time comes there is a need to evacuate, that we're professional and rapid, and we've been exercised in doing so, whether through drills or previous incidents. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so the sheriff is empowered by statute to be responsible for evacuations within unincorporated Placer County, including all of Placer County within the basin here. And that was also included his responsibilities, and in fact, all of the procedures and processes for evacuations are laid out in our 2015 update to the Placer Operational Area East Side Emergency Evacuation Plan. As the sheriff and Chief Estes had noted, we just completed our second annual Unified Command Training up at Palisades Tahoe last Wednesday. I was super proud to be associated with this training. And for those of you who aren't familiar, what Unified Command Training really means is to give you a little bit of the background. In years past, when there was an emergency, law would respond and set up its own command post, and fire would respond and set up its own command post, and there would be very little coordination or communication before those. Those days are long gone. We work collaboratively now on every incident, not just wildland fires, but we are trained, and we do continually train, to go into what is called Unified Command Training. This is where we put our law operations manager along with the fire operations manager, whoever that may be at the time, to coordinate all of our emergency responses. So the benefit of that is the information exchange is both timely, accurate, and coordinated. There is nothing lost in translation, nothing being relayed third hand, because we are literally standing next to each other to manage the emergency.
So the purpose of this training is to focus on unified command. One of the biggest threats we see in this region to large-scale emergencies is damaging wildland fire. And every agency here has something to bring to the table as far as jurisdictional authority and jurisdictional responsibilities. The jurisdictional authority for wildland fire suppression in this region typically falls to CAL FIRE within the state responsibility area, and the federal agencies for federal responsibility areas, specifically the Tahoe National Forest and Lake Tahoe Basin Management Unit. And then law enforcement.
The Sheriff's Office is going to be responsible for evacuations, mass notification. A lot of it on the evacuation side and displacement is going to include a lot of timely and accurate information as we go through this event, whether it's 1 day or 2 months, which unfortunately in California is something that we're seeing more and more. One of the biggest factors in the foundation of a good unified command is having relationships with all of the agencies and all of the partners out there, outside of public safety even, from the utilities to the water districts, to all those impacted, those stakeholders, with whatever event that they're suffering the consequences of.
We're really focusing on our incidents in this region, Lake Tahoe region. There's 3 different scenarios. So with the fire department side, specifically CAL FIRE, and then also working with the local fire districts, understanding that threat, where's the fire moving to, what's the significance and what's the potential here?
Tahoe definitely has its own nuances. It has different places where we're displacing people, folks that are going through their worst day that they've ever been through in their life, having to leave their house and getting evacuated to an area, making sure that they're going to a comfortable shelter if they don't have access to a family member or a hotel room in the area, with that great overarching piece of accurate and timely information to all the Placer County constituents, because that's exactly what the expectations are.
Obviously, this is Lake Tahoe. There's a large tourist population, transient population that is coming in and out every day, and making sure that we take the right steps to make sure we tell them where to go to avoid the fire area and make collaborative decisions moving forward within our own jurisdictional responsibilities.
And that's an overview of our Eastside Unified Command Training, which we held last week. There was over 20 agencies represented, 80 in attendance. We set up 3 different training scenarios, and the participants rotated through each scenario. And one of the things I enjoy most about that is the collaboration with our other agencies. And I see that here like nowhere else I've ever seen. It's one of the pleasures of my job, is getting to work with such great partners.
Thanks, Don. So last year I was here at the town hall. We really kind of dove deep into, our evacuations, how we do notifications, and how we do our zoning. One thing I really wanted to kind of focus on is what we kind of heard from, the community and what we've done to improve on that. Up here, you see a slide that's basically the regional Lake Tahoe regional evacuation plan. This has been a heavy lift. And you can see all the agencies that are actually involved with that. And this is going California and Nevada side. And what we wanted to do is basically have kind of that one plan that kind of has all the different, because you have Nevada County, you have California, or Nevada and California, and we all have our different evacuation plans. Well, when I go over to help another agency, how do I know what their process is? And so we're kind of putting that as a one-stop shop. And we've all worked together. We've attended numerous meetings to kind of come up with the verbiage that works best for everybody. And then we have all the annexes with all the different evacuations in there. But what it did, though, is that a lot of people have had those concerns of the communication between state lines. And this took it away, because we were in the room all together, all discussing the concerns that we have, and really creating those partnerships like we did in Unified Command Training. Is we're meeting partners out there during the training side. Well, we're doing it the same thing here when we're putting together this plan. Another thing we had is, again, the major concern is how do we get people out of, if we have a major incident, how do we notify those vacationers, those short-time rentals? How do they get notified as far as when an emergency is and when they get an evacuation? And so I'm really proud of this effort with the TahoeAlerts.com. It kind of started with on our share side with the county. The county PIOs have really done a heavy lift on this, but we really wanted this to be kind of multi-agency. It's not just Placer County. So that's why we created this TahoeAlerts.com. And what it does is basically takes someone that's vacationing, they're in their short-term rental for a couple of weeks, and say it's a high summer fire season, and they want to get notified if there's a fire, if there's any type of incident. And so they go into TahoeAlerts.com, they enter the address that they're staying, and it will take them to the appropriate notification agency for that address. And so again, it's another one-stop shop for people to go and to sign up to get those emergency notifications. I think this is a great effort of, again, worked around the basin with all the different agencies to approve this kind of campaign. We're actually on the Placer County side, I know we've done a pretty heavy lift when it comes to putting it out there with, you might see these banners on the side of the buses. We're doing a merchant tour tomorrow, kind of putting things out to the different merchants. A little table things to go onto restaurants. And we really want to start focusing too on the short-term rentals, Airbnbs, that when people do the rental, they have this information so that way they can notify or get notified and sign up. PlacerAlert.com is obviously the one for Placer County. So if you live in Placer County, you know that you can go to Placer Alert Tahoe. If you put in your address in TahoeAlert.com, it'll take you over to Placer Alert. But anyways, our notifications haven't changed. They're still saying the same. We use the Everbridge system. And, the one thing about it is that if you don't have that landline phone and you work and you live on a cell phone, you must register to get those notifications. But again, this all stemmed from the fact of the concerns we've been hearing from the public. How do we get people notified and how we get people out of the basin as quickly as possible? With that, I'll turn it back over to Cindy.
Thank you. Sorry. So here is the outreach and education page we have, and we've put together this website, and I think you can see how coordinated we're trying to be with with all the efforts that we're undertaking, and social media, videos, the various presentations we do to make sure that we inform everybody in the community next steps and our outreach there. And that's the end. So with that, we do want to open it up to questions. I did want to just, once again, for all of you out there, to please recognize all of our public safety officials and the expertise they bring to their job. I think often people are concerned, they don't necessarily know the faces, but they're all here for you to meet and see tonight and to ask questions of. These are the people dedicated to protecting you through all kinds of different incidents and activities, and I do want to thank them all for taking their time to be here and to help educate us and to provide us that level of knowledge of what we need to do next. So with that, we'll ask for questions from the room first, and we have a microphone if you're willing to go on mic. If not, you can hand us a card and we can ask your question.
Hi, Wayne Nader. One thing that was not mentioned, I know the objective is to get people out of harm's way, but how about shelter in place as an alternative? I didn't hear that discussed, is what the parameters of that might be.
Thanks, Wayne. And it was, as far as shelter in place, and Chief Hudson mentioned that, it's obviously the fire dictates our evacuation zone, who's getting evacuated, and also the fire is going to dictate the fact that if we need to make the decision that sheltering in place is the best option, then that's what we're going to do, and that decision is also made under unified command. So shelter in place is definitely, there's three major things you're going to hear from us. You're going to hear evacuation order, evacuation warning, or shelter in place. And those are the three things that we're going to be notifying the community. And if it's decided that sheltering in place is that best option, then that's what we're going to do.
Just in this area, for instance, any of the hotels that are above 3 stories are a type 1 structure, and they're designed to withstand natural disasters. When you go into a hotel room and you see that, I'll date myself, but you see the little nuclear sign, there are a lot of structures that have the fallout or the ability to take people in for a sustained amount of time. Thank you.
I think last year when we had this question, and I hate to put you on the spot, Chief Chisholm, but you had some valuable information as well as to what to look for. Say you're out hiking and there's a fire, and what kind of spaces you're looking for, because we're not always sitting in our homes when we might hear there's an incident and we need to do something. So.
So I don't recollect that question exactly from last year, but I'll try to weigh in on it. So
I can tell you.
I think where we're going with this is that it's important for those that are visiting the area that aren't as familiar as the locals that live here to really be aware of the environment that you are traveling in. Is it a heavy forested area? Is it more granite? Is it a meadowy area? And pay attention to the, what the weather forecast is. Is it a drier year than normal? Is it a higher fire danger time of year? And just be aware of that and factor that into your plans for the day, who you're communicating with, where you're going to be, when you'll be back. And then just have it in the back of your mind a little bit of a plan B, what your route out might be if something kicks up and you're not able to get out the same way you came in. And expanding on that a little bit, in Olympic Valley for the last few years, we have had a evacuation type of drill / town hall meeting that's hosted by Palisades, and it's a great opportunity for the community to come together. We meet in the parking lot there, and we talk about what Ty mentioned, the 3 types of evacuations, the orders, the warnings, and the shelter in place, and try to explain to the constituency, what the parameters are that are going to lead us to making those determinations. And one thing I want to just loop back on this whole thing with really quick is there's been a lot of talk about unified command, which is absolutely the case, but it is the responsibility of the law enforcement to issue and follow through for evacuations. Fire will work with them to give them the idea of where that fire is headed, what the time frames look like, and maybe where that box is that the evacuation will take place. We collaborate together, we coordinate together, we complement each other, but ultimately it's law enforcement that's going to make those evacuation determinations.
And I was being humorous on a not so humorous note, but I want to share that I think last year we talked a bit about looking for open space areas far from trees. We looked at golf courses, ball fields, lakeshore beaches, areas that you can get to where you're not, and maybe someone else would like to chime in here, because I just remember I learned a lot from last year of what measures to look for my family and my loved ones.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, our goal is always going to be to provide ample time. But in those situations where we do have a rapidly expanding fire, some of the earliest challenges we can see with evacuations are those early moments of the fire, right? Those early hours. And sometimes shelter in place might be the best option because it's safer to be in your house and not on the road, right? And knowing those temporary refuge areas, planning them with your family, and we've talked about some of them tonight, and they're easy to identify. Open areas, beaches, like everything you've just said, Supervisor. It is important to identify those because those are a viable option. If you're at home, we might say, hey, go to this area, and it's a good collection point, and it's going to be safe there. And, it's on us as first responders to know where those areas, and we can make those decisions on the fly, and it's also on the homeowners and the residents to know where those are as well. All very viable options. If you look at the campfire, a lot of people took refuge on the golf courses. And if you look at what we saw in Maui last year, people took refuge in the ocean, and some open areas is there as well. So it is a very viable option, and we will give that direction if necessary. Sometimes if we think the fire's not going to be as impactful or hidden area is hard too, it might be just a safe, nice open area. We do that as firefighters, right? If we feel that we're unsafe, we're going to get into an open area and we're going to wait it out till it's safe. And we're going to tell those crews it's okay to move now, or they'll know when to do it. It's a standard practice, and though we might have gear on, those areas of safety areas, or what we call them, or temporary refuge areas, you shouldn't need to be able to have a fire shelter, right? It should be very tenable, and that's how we live our lives as first responders and our protocol, and it's very effective for the public also.
Thank you. Do we have other questions out there?
Hi, my name's Sean Comstock, and I have owned a home in Kings Beach since 1986, and I also live in Incline Village. Ty, your regional fire explanation was very interesting. I consider myself North Tahoe Fire between Kings Beach and Incline Village. Mount Rose Highway is a main evacuation route out of our basin, and it has been for many, many years. And I want to bring to your agency the new knowledge that the TRPA and Washoe County has now rezoned Mount Rose Highway to a school zone. And there will be 100 to 200 students daily at the Catholic Church and at the Village Church. There is no bus system for these students to evacuate them out. They may have a plan that parents come pick them up. So if parents during an evacuation come from Tahoe City, Truckee, Kings Beach to try to get their students out of the school during an evacuation, we might have a problem, and I want to make sure that your agencies are aware of what has just been voted to do. And so there are special use permits now from the Board of Adjustments that are coming up. Our residents are asking them only, they want to house K through high school on both of these locations, and residents are asking them only to house K through third grade, possibly. Incline Village was, made to put our schools in the middle of town so our safety responders and sheriff's department could evacuate all the children in that area. And now there'll be 6 schools that our responders will be having to, filter out to, and they will be filtering out onto Mount Rose Highway, which is our North Tahoe Basin, one of the main hubs and evacuation route. So I was wondering if you were aware of that change of the rezoning on Mount Rose Highway to a school zone, just for your own knowledge. And I want to know if there is a plan in place for Mount Rose Highway now being a school zone, Monday through Friday, yearly. And it's been going on for 2 years now. So thank you. I'd like to know if there's a plan in place for the Wood Creek residents to be able to get out, or what should we be looking at as a town? And Crystal Bay and Kings Beach, in case you have to bring your residents that direction. Thank you.
I'll start with a little bit on that. So, in terms of, specific things that happen in specific jurisdictions, that's obviously the purview of that jurisdiction. I think where, that something like that, where it's so important is when we're communicating and collaborating with our partners. And so, well, I guess it was just yesterday, we had a meeting with all of the Lake Tahoe and emergency managers. We even brought our sheltering folks with us just to talk about those types of collaborations. I have my counterpart, the emergency manager of Washoe County, actually on speed dial. We talked the other night when they had a couple of fires to make sure that they had everything they need. And I am confident that if there's something going on and there's a need to send people through another jurisdiction, that on the law and the fire and the emergency management side, we're all talking to our counterparts. You got to make sure that whatever they need to be doing on their end, whether they're sending us people or we're sending them people, that's all handled in a collaborative and in a coordinated fashion. So appreciate the information. Changes like that happen all the time, and it's hard enough for us to keep up with those even on our own jurisdiction. But know that we've got good connections and good relationships with our partners, across county lines, across the state lines, and we talk a lot. So that specific is going to be Washoe County. That's their jurisdiction. So specific evacuation plan for that area would be something that they would be responsible for.
But one thing we'll make sure, just obviously with this town hall coming in and questions we have that might affect another jurisdiction, so we'll reach out to our other EM counterparts and let them know the concern you just brought up, and make sure that we're getting that communication and making sure that we're on the same page.
Thank you.
And I can say on the fire side, we work very closely with the Nevada Division of Forestry, and we have agreements with them for sharing resources. So if there's a fire across the state line, we will know about it either way, and we'll be discussing that. That has happened in the past. I have been on the phone when there's a fire in Nevada and talking about potential any threat to California and vice versa. So we're not going to, let the neighboring state get caught by surprise by any means.
Because we're broadcasting this, we do need people to use the mic when you're speaking. But let's move on to another question, because I do think they've heard you, and they're going to make sure that that's informed. And we know Washoe County approved that change, so their law enforcement, their sheriffs are very well aware of that. Thank you, but we'll make sure we know too. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Patricia. I'm a homeowner, permanent resident here in Kings Beach. I have 3 topics, I think. First off is, in the past few comments, there's been talk around evacuation plan per little subset of a neighborhood here, and where we should go in emergency is different. Will there ever be a time where, rather than waiting for alert and the unknown of what should I do, where each community here is provided with, this is our emergency preparation plan if all else fails? Just like there are in communities where there's hurricanes and other things along coast and other areas. We have a lot of those threats, and I don't feel we have those wayfinder signs or any insight in what should someone do.
Well, the answer to that question, again, what we talked about when it comes to evacuation zones or who's getting affected, that fire behavior dictates it. So if we have a sign that's telling you to go 89, the Highway 89 to Tahoe City, saying that's the direction you need to go, but then the fire does something that changes that, and everyone's trying to follow the sign because you got to go the other direction. So again, we know and understand there's only so many ways out of the Tahoe Basin, and and again, that's where it's going to be incumbent on the unified command of making that decision of what the best direction is, and that's how you're going to get notified. And if your area is under that zone, you're going to get notified through the Placer Alert, and it's going to tell you what direction to go. We also work closely with our CHP partners. We do traffic control points and everything that will help guide people out of the safest route out of that location.
Okay, so my understanding from that, the alerts are the best way, so thank you. Hope that we do some more education for the community around that. I feel the resistance is the lack of knowledge of what should I do and how will I know what to do. So the second topic I have here is around the evacuation plan, also is the traffic out to get out 89 and 267. My understanding from another town hall in here were the environmental review for the current plan to exit out of those thoroughways is ending next month. And therefore, my question to the fire people or Placer is, one, are you guys as an agency exploring any alternatives if this doesn't come back as a positive, yes, we can have a middle lane down 89? My concern is the county isn't looking at this, is fire looking at alternative options?
So another thing we discussed, and Chris, if you can want to chime in on this too, when it comes to traffic control or traffic volume or how we're going to direct people out. So there's a lot of different terms that we've used in the past. Traffic control points obviously control that, but I also want to put a lot of ownership and responsibility on people being prepared, being ready to go. So if they do get a warning, that's not a time for you to start thinking about what you want to do. You want to have that plan of the ready, set, go. And then when you do finally get that notification, one thing that obviously helps us is that if you have a large family with multi-vehicles, you're carpooling in one car to limit the amount of vehicles that are going in a direction. Now, when you're looking at 89 or 267, it is a heavy lift logistically wise, but there are things called contraflow where you can change the direction of traffic. Where you use, instead of a one-lane road going out, you change it into 2, and you use the shoulder as your emergency response lane. So there are ways that we can do it. We can completely, if we had to, completely stop traffic coming in and just allowing all traffic going out. So there's a lot of different techniques and stuff that we do, but that's where it's always important to keep those communication lines going. So I don't know if Lieutenant Reardon.
Yeah, just community consensus is somewhat, we're relying on this environmental review to be our answer of what we can do to improve exiting. And so therefore, I just want to I think it would be helpful for the community to understand what some of these other options may be, particularly if next month they come back and say something that we've been fighting for 7 years is not going to happen as our answer. Fair? And then my last topic is adjacent to this, that is impacting a lot of our community. And I'm curious to understand is, in the fire, is there anything you guys do to support the community with their wildfire score ranking in this county? All of the people in this area are getting dropped, and insurance companies are saying they're going to drop us. And I was curious, is there something that the fire departments are doing to support our community and members around this?
Well, the answer is a big yes, as far as what our fire departments are doing and all of us, and even
the
what the
ranking.
county is doing and advocating for you with our state insurance commissioner and the insurance regulations from the county side. So that's my job, is to elevate those voices to the state officials who are determining any new policies on insurance regulations, because we're all in that boat.
And my
so that's an
question
issue.
is not about the insurance. Okay.
Right. And so then looking at the scores in defensible space and a lot of the investments we've made, many millions of dollars, but I'll turn it over to the fire professionals to talk about.
Yeah, the
what
specific wildfire score ranking. Is there anything that you or other fire agencies can do to help improve that for this area?
That's an excellent question. So I think we can spend, we could probably talk all night on insurance discussions on what we're doing. In fire prevention, I kind of a twofold. I want to get back to your second question as well. In fire prevention, we have the 5 E's, and some of it falls on education and engineering. And evacuation routes really starts in preparedness or pre-planning. So in getting people out of the basin, some of the local fire chiefs and state agencies and federal partners, our main focus is strengthening or fortifying some of these evacuation routes, like the 89 corridor. So that was kind of your point to the second question. That kind of folds the nexus into the insurance component. I know Commissioner Lara is looking at the scoring and getting value into what's the word? The mitigations that like communities put together.
communities do and
So
individuals.
So the communities get value for the work they're putting into those projects to get better scores on those insurance ratings. But that's like a very large conversation again. Are we a part of those? Absolutely. And we're doing everything we can to make sure that we're getting the best value out of those scorings through ISO ratings, our responses, mitigations that are prepared by the different agencies.
And
So
I'll let
hopefully
you know also that the California Association of Counties in mass is dealing with this. So we're collecting stories right now of those who have lost their insurance, how they've hardened their homes. We have many stories of people who have invested tens of thousands of dollars and still lost their insurance. So CSAC is, and please pass it on, email our office. And we just sent off a huge batch of them today, Sophie, got them to the CSAC staff that are lobbying for those changes at the insurance commissioner's level. And hopefully our legislators are going to listen to that and understand that we want to invest in projects that protect our communities, and we want to see results from that. We want to see that insurance carriers are recognizing that.
Hey, Cindy, can I come back to the routes
Yes.
and the environmental report? I'm not familiar with the report that you're talking about. I know there's been conversations about increasing capacity for transit use. I will say, regardless of a piece of paper, an environmental report, those roads are viable exit routes, viable emergency egress routes, regardless of what that report says as far as adding additional capacity.
And
Yes,
if I
understand that, but the community has been waiting 7 years on the report for allowing you to actually do that, right? So is what my understanding is, and maybe that is incorrect. And so we can talk about that offline.
Yeah, we're going to use that road regardless of what a piece of paper says.
And then I think I wanted to follow up and ask Ty to talk a little bit about what we did in the mosquito fire evacuation, because I got to watch these people, my heroes, get everybody out of Forest Hill that is in my district at the other end, and a very fire-prone area. and how they were able to do that. And I think sometimes, I think these gentlemen all know how they do these things, but it's important for us to explain it to the community so they do have more assurance of what they're going to do. So, Ty, if you
I'll
could.
give you the Reader's Digest version of it. So, one thing when I talk about, the concerns of getting a mass amount of people out at a certain, with very limited access or limited exits, is one thing we do is a systematic approach when it comes to evacuation zones. We get asked repeatedly why Placer County doesn't do pre-zoning, and that is one of the reasons why we don't do it, is because, like always say, is the fire dictates the size of the zone. The size of the zone, or who's getting evacuated, is also going to affect how many people are on the roadway. So if we do a systematic approach when it comes to designing our evacuation orders, getting the people on the next with evacuation warnings, and when we create those, it's all based on fire behavior. Because if you do a pre-designated zone and the fire is going through and touches one of those, a corner of it, but going in an opposite direction, that whole zone gets under evacuation order, which means more people on the roadway for us to deal with. So with the systematic approach that we do, and how we did it with mosquito fire, is that we went through and evacuated the people that needed to, and then got people on the bubble when it came to that next time they needed to go up, that they were already ready. And so it's just a very good approach when it comes to handling large amounts of people and getting them out systematically.
And it worked, and that's what Sheriff Wu had shared, 11,000 people in 4 hours, but they phased it. So not everybody got on the road at one time and created chaos there, so it worked. It was incredible to see. Other questions?
Hello, my name's Patty. I'm actually part of Placer County, but I live in Truckee. So we are part of the Truckee Fire Department area, and we are actually in the process of creating our own Firewise community. And first I want to say thank you, because Thomas from CAL FIRE, along with members of the Truckee Fire Department and U.S. Forest Service, did come to talk to our community recently, and it was very informational, and we really appreciate it. But we're in a part of Placer County where, I'm going to be quite honest, we feel like the forgotten children of Placer County, because we are in that area where everything that happens is part of Nevada County, but we're Placer County. So we don't really know what resources we have and how things are going to work. And we had members come and talk to us about evacuation and with regards to defensible space, which was wonderful. But the one thing I'd like to know is, have you ever tested the Placer Alert system? Because I've signed up for it. I've never received a test. I used to get notifications through Nixle when that was the system that was being used. We tried to sign up for Nevada County's Code Red, but of course we're not in Nevada County. So we kind of wonder, are we going to get notified in the event of an emergency for evacuation? Because we've never experienced a Placer Alert test.
I'll start, and then Lieutenant Connors can chime in as well. So yes, Placer Alert gets tested almost annually. We do it generally on the Great Shakeout, which happens in October. Last year, in addition to testing Placer Alert, we actually tested the wireless emergency alert system, which goes beyond just a sign-in system, but anybody with a cell phone that's going to get a signal from a cell phone tower, where an alert has been issued, is going to get notified. And that system was also tested last year. Actually, we did a large regional, there was a national exercise for the wireless emergency alert system. So keep a lookout for that. It happened, like I said, every October as part of the Great Shakeout. In order to get those, though, you have to be signed up. So I'll just make a shameless plug for either the Placer Alert or the Tahoe Alerts. Make sure you're signed up. And if you need help with that, there is a phone number you can call, and we can help you get you signed up.
I am signed up. My husband's signed up. We don't have a landline because they won't put a landline in, so we have to rely on voice over internet, of which we have, and we also have our cell phones, and we've never received a test. I've been in my house for 8 years. I know Placer Alert is somewhat new, in those 8 years. But we did get notifications when we had Nixle, but we don't get any notifications. We have not received any. And some of my neighbors have told me the exact same thing, because that's part of the conversations we've been having as we're developing our Firewise community.
Well, get us your information and your numbers, and I'm sure our OES team, we can check that and do a specific check with you.
And
Because
just
that's
letting-
very important, because I know I've received them, but I'm signed up for a lot of the areas, so I know I receive them, but.
Yeah, and like I say, one thing, and if you're signed up, so we've used Placer Alert, Everbridge, and numerous incidents throughout Placer County. And so far, out of the hundreds and thousands of ones that we've done, even on the mosquito fire, I didn't receive any information about people that didn't receive an alert. So we know the system's working. Now, we haven't done, a specific test in that area. We'll get your information, and we'll talk about doing maybe a specific test, because you guys are in a little island over there, and you feel like you need to see if that works. I'm more than willing to do that. So, but just out of all the incidents that we've had throughout Placer County, we've had a very, very minimal people that actually say that they've never had received an alert.
And then just to speak to it from Truckee Fire Protection District, we understand that we have people that live close to the county line, unincorporated Placer County, unincorporated Nevada County, and we do encourage people to sign up for both alert systems. And so Nevada County is using Code Red. It does require an address, and so we encourage people to find an address that's in, say, Nevada County that may be near their address in Placer County, and sign up for Code Red, and perhaps do the same thing for Placer Alert, so that as we know, these incidents, these wildfires, they don't know boundaries, and so we definitely want to get the message out. And I will say that we miss Nixle too at Truckee Fire, so we enjoyed that messaging platform, but we're on Code Red now.
And just last thing I want to add on to, so when we had the Everbridge system, we're a tri-county. We had Sacramento, Yolo, and Placer County involved in our alerts system. And so now we broke away. We're independently now by ourselves. And so we're going through, there's some additional things that we can add on to our alert system. So we're training up our dispatchers and everybody when it comes to what the being solo and what we can have to add to the whole Everbridge system. And one thing we want to do, though, is make sure and do another test on it, because going solo and breaking away, we want to make sure that all the notifications of people that are registered are still up and valid. And if you haven't received it, then maybe you need to go back in and register. So we will be doing a large scale test when we finally go official with our solo account.
Great. If I wanted to go to some written and online questions, and then we can come back to the room for additional.
What happens when the agencies don't agree on response or direction? Is there one agency who makes the decision?
So it's obviously depending on the incident now I can have our fire partners talk about it too. Depending on the incident it's at, when you go under Unified Command, the ICs are the jurisdictional authority agencies. I'm talking to you like it's talking to you in the camera. So like say, if you do have a fire or incident that was in Placer County's jurisdiction, that we are the law authority to making the decisions, and then depending on what fire district it is, or if it's SRA or LRA, we're the ones that are going to be communicating with each other, and you have one-on-one making those decisions and coming up with the best decision possible. But even though we have a lot of mutual aid or other agencies responding, you truly only have the two that have that jurisdictional authority.
Yeah, I'd say Ty hit the nail on the head. Specifically for the fire side, when it comes to Unified Command, we apply that on any incident regardless of the jurisdictional authority. If it is in multiple boundaries, jurisdictions, or threatening, we will do that because, I don't think we've ever had an issue that I'm aware of in my time in the Nevada EVA Placer unit with any of our local agencies, and we've always come to the table and gone into Unified Command. We've really strengthened that through training. But I think, the best way to set yourself up for failure is to make decisions in a silo based on what is happening in a specific jurisdiction and not looking at it globally. And then we are committed. We have great working relationships, and we all have something to bring to the table. We all have resources that we share, and that's how we've been successful.
Thank you. The next question is, have boats such as the Tahoe Gal been considered as a part of the lake evacuation plan?
So that was discussed, but there's actually a lot of issues that go along with, commandeering private craft like that. And also, more importantly, is once you take on these people, you become responsible for their safety, making sure you have enough life vests for them. And then finally, where do you take them? Where do we deposit them safely? You can't just evacuate them and not have a plan of where you're going. And the very limited space, even on our biggest boat, which would be the Tahoe Gal, is only 100-something people. So it's not a very feasible solution to an evacuation. We'd be much more focused on getting people out of the area or having them respond to a TRA, a temporary refuge area.
Given that PG&E ratepayers most often pay for devastating wildfires, where is PG&E?
Well, Liberty is in the house, and I think that question is probably coming from somebody outside the area that doesn't know we don't have PG&E service here. We do have Liberty Utilities here in the room. They've been great partners in this effort, and I don't know if they want to address that. Lee, if you want to come up and answer that question.
So the question is, why are they paying for?
I think they were just asking if you're in the room, if
Oh,
the
yeah.
utility companies are here.
Yeah, we are here, and we're very conscious of rates. All of our rates have to be approved through the California Public Utility Commission. There's a very formalized process for raising rates. We have to have proof that we actually spent that money on system and hardening or mitigation. We are doing a lot of that in the Tahoe Basin, covered conductor, other things that would mitigate fire. We kind of look at the areas that are most prone to fire. We have some fire modeling consultants that'll tell us, even though the whole area is prone to fire, there are certain areas that are more prone to fire and where more damage will occur. And that's where we put more of our system hardening. We target certain areas to do that, and we're very mindful of it. We don't do as much undergrounding as Pacific Gas and Electric. They've advertised, I think they're doing 10,000 miles, but we're in a mountain area. There's a lot of rock. It's harder to dig and to get permits to do it. And oh, by the way, in the winter, if we want to work on those lines, we have to move 5 feet of snow. So, long story short, we don't do a lot of undergrounding, but we are doing a lot of system hardening. And I'd be glad to talk individually or offline if there are any more questions on it.
Great. And if the caller wants to email our office again, the email's up, and we can put them in touch with Liberty to make sure that we answer that question as completely as they'd like.
Yeah, and if they need a presentation for their group, we'd be glad to do that as well.
Thanks, Lee.
And one more, is there anywhere online where the public can view the strategic communication plan for emergencies in the North Tahoe area?
So probably the best place for that is going to be the county's emergency operations plan. That is something that we are just getting started on doing a major update to, but that plan, talks about that kind of collaborative communication across agencies for really any kind of incident. There isn't anything specific to Tahoe because the concept is the same, that the agencies involved, and whether it's fire or law or utilities or whatever it might be, we'll bring those people back together. That's that joint information center concept that I talked about at the beginning of the presentation. We'll bring those people together, and that's why having Liberty here today and the PUDs and things like that super important. And we work together on other kinds of projects. And so just like your first responders in that are working collaboratively, we are also working collaboratively with those other jurisdictions that are also involved in those things, and making sure that timely, accurate, and coordinated information is happening, across the board.
And then did you also have some written questions, Audrey? Okay, go ahead.
What about our pets?
And we have Health and Human Services here in the room. They actually also handle animal services. But just, for example, in the mosquito fire, we had just about 100 people in some kind of shelter situation with us. And during that same time period, we had 450 pets. And it was everything from cats and dogs to, I think we had a llama and some other things. So in emergency management, actually pets is kind of one of those emerging issues as people get more attached in that. So we think about it all the time, and we're thinking about it in our sheltering situations, in our transportation. We work with animal services. You know, sometimes, unfortunately, things happen fast and you have to leave your pets. There's we provide an opportunity for you to give us that information. We don't want you to try sneaking back in, obviously, to try to take care of your pets. But when something happens and there is an evacuation, there'll be a way for you to let us know if you had to leave your pets behind, and we can work with animal services to take good care of them. And we had a lot of that happening in the mosquito fire, and it was very successful. We're also looking at there's the Ag Pass program, which we use for ranchers that have, livestock and things like that, and making sure that their investment can be as protected as possible while still making sure that, that lives obviously come first. But I would say animals is a hot topic in emergency management. And Chris, I don't know if there's anything you wanted to add from Health and Human Services, but just know they're in the room, and if there's specific questions about animals, feel free to email those in, and we can address those.
And we actually incorporated animal control in our Unified Command training. You actually saw a picture; they were there, so they'd be in that liaison with Unified Command, and that's the kind of stuff that Dave's talking about. They had to leave their pets behind, and they had to go back in, and so, like I say, mosquito fire was very. There was a lot of animal care going on with that, so making sure that those liaisons in Unified Command is key.
I'll add to that too, if I could, really quick. So apart from just the incident command and the pre-planning for pets, on the fire line, there's an opportunity for that as well to be addressed. And so I'll give you an example. On the Dixie fire, we were trying to evacuate an individual who had 40 standard poodles. And we put a lot of effort into getting that out, and we ended up having to shelter a lot of those in place. We ended up getting some out. But if you have a pet that you have to leave behind, communicate with get through to the fire, get through to that instant command, notify them, and they will make sure that people on the line, those firefighters on the front line, as soon as they can, they will get into your house and make sure and check on your pets and make sure check on their well-being. If they can get them out and it's reasonable to do so, they'll do that. But it's more just to check on and make sure that they're in there. They've got food and water or whatever it might be. So there's an opportunity for that as well for the the frontline firefighters to help out as well.
And lastly, one thing that we've been doing very well is with a connecting point with 211. We were working with the COAD. 211 is actually used as kind of like, those non-emergency lines. You want people to call in dispatch who's already getting kind of inundated with phone calls. So if you do have any type of concerns about your neighbor's pet or whatever, you can call 211. What they're doing is they're kind of logging all those, and they're kind of divvying those out to the appropriate locations and notifying them. So it's just another avenue that we're giving people to stay connected with the incident.
So 211 is Placer and Nevada County. We share the same provider connecting points, so we're very fortunate in that regard. So they're very well versed in the resources, and Ann is actually with Connecting Points. She's our our COAD executive, but can talk to that as well if you'd.
Hold on, we'll get you a mic. Sorry.
Yeah, so Connecting Point runs, we have some information back here. We run the 211 for Placer, Nevada County. But if you are an Incline resident, you probably will get routed to Nevada 211, but you can ask to get routed back to Connecting Point because we'll have the more localized basin resources versus resources in Reno.
No, that's just specifically to the Tahoe alerts when it comes to that part of it. But that's where, when people, again, when it comes to looking into the incident, Connecting Point 211, the Ready Plaster dashboard is kind of your one-stop shop. We'll divert people to that and give them that kind of information.
Are there any other questions online?
There's one more. Why is it that Eastern Placer County does not have green waste bins from TTSD? Truckee utilizes this service and they share the same disposal company. I've called the company and this is not a Placer County supported program. Can we please have this option at our disposal company? It is critical to our continuous community defensible space. The program is in place now and it is not a convenient place for us to drop off pine needle cleanup.
Thank you. We've had this question come to our office probably several times now. And in Nevada County, and in the town of Truckee, they have passed an extra surcharge and are paying for that service. But Matt, do you know, we don't have anybody else from Public Works here tonight. Stephanie, do you have more information? Happy to get back to the caller with more detailed information. So do you have a phone number or an email there? Okay, then we'll get back to them. We can't get back to them, but we'll try to make sure that we get that information out.
And I can speak to that a little bit as well. So, for example, in Olympic Valley, we don't have the green waste bins that they're talking about, but we have other options for that we're pretty aggressive on. We've got every one Sunday a month throughout the summer, constituents can bring their green waste down to free drop-off, and then we also have a green waste rebate program for a dumpster. So it might not be specific like what Truckee's doing, but we do have other viable and meaningful options.
Yeah, and the same goes for Placer County. I should have said, we do have free green waste drop-off days. You can always take a certain amount of yards to the dump. I just don't have that in the top of my head. Stephanie, do you? I think it's 6 yards you can take, and then we have free waste days too. But I think specifically this caller may have emailed my office as well about the green bin specifically, so we'll have to get back to that.
And we can't forget about the chipper program either that the county made a pretty significant investment in. So that is also available for folks, so please take advantage of that.
Okay, that in online? Okay, we'll go back to the room. Has that prompted any other questions from the room or any other points of clarification? Anyone else before I go back to you, just because did you have any questions? Okay.
Hello, my name is Allison. I live in Placer County, but I just moved right like 2 blocks over the border from Nevada County, and I ski and climb in all of your jurisdictions. I'm concerned about the proposed project at Palisades Tahoe, which would add 3,300 daily car trips to the valley and make the evacuation time for Olympic Valley over 11 hours. And my question is for you, Supervisor Gustafson. How do all, like this panel of awesome experts, inform your decisions as a supervisor?
Wow. Okay. Well, this is what we do. We spend all day in this room listening to the public and coming back with trying to find the right mix of projects and programs for our community. It certainly informs me. I listen first and foremost to the public safety officials on any issue related to public safety and what they advise we do. Certainly specific to Palisades, there's a lot of input out there, and the project is coming back. I don't have those dates off the top of my head. Bridget sitting next to you might know those dates for public meetings on the project specifically. But I think every bit of information from not only community partners, our public safety partners, and our neighbors are all input that comes to a supervisor in my capacity before I make a final decision. So I have to weigh all of that in making those decisions. So tough. It's sometimes very hard to navigate, but it is. Thank you. And I saw Bridget gave you the card, so you can email your question too, and we'll get back to you. Thank you. Anything else that you had on that? Okay. Then I think you had another question over here.
Just a follow-up question on the alerts. Many of us in the community use watch duty because we cross boundaries all day long into many counties here. Do these Placer alerts also feed into other APIs into those systems in real time as well?
Yeah, as far as that, like say, they're not directly linked into the watch duty. Watch duty is getting all the information, and putting it in there. But, Placer Alert's not feeding watch duty. That, anything that's happening with us, we're going to keep that within, our social media platforms, our Ready Placer dashboard platforms. All that stuff is getting filtered into that regarding our incident. But when it comes to other incidents, if it's not within our jurisdictional area, for Placer Alert, then you won't be getting that through watch duty.
Great. Well, if I don't see any other questions in the room, I want to take this opportunity to remind you all that all of these people work for you and are accessible. Me on down this line and all of the individuals from the counties, Sheriff, CAL FIRE, we're all here working for you. So please email us with your questions. Phone any of us anytime because we're here to serve you and to get answers to your questions. If we don't have them, we'll get them for you. This effort tonight is, to your point, how do we better communicate and educate? This is why we've put this out on Facebook, on Nextdoor. We're trying to get a huge turnout to educate people. And so we'll continue. This is being recorded and live broadcast, so we'll be able to share a link and hopefully provide that information to our community. And I definitely need to thank all of you. But before I sign off for all of us, are there any other parting comments anybody would like to make from this panel?
I'll make a comment. So there's obviously been a lot of talk tonight about, it's evacuation focus, so it would be common that there's a lot of talk about notifications. Over the last year, the regional fire chiefs, so roughly 20 fire agencies from the greater Lake Tahoe area, including California and Nevada, and it's represented by the slide that Ty showed you that had all the emblems from the agencies on it. We've met monthly to come up with that document that really starts to put things into a perspective that allows us to better work together. It's the law enforcement, it's fire, it's the public utilities, it's the Office of Emergency Management, everybody collaborating and getting on the same page and complementing each other. And one of the big takeaways was that what Ty put together was the Tahoe Alerts. And it's a very valuable program, but it's not a fail-safe. So I would just end with this. Take your best judgment into consideration. So, of course, if something happens in the middle of the night and you're not awake, you're going to want that alert. But also, you don't have to wait for notification from us to determine when to evacuate. Use your best judgment. If you've got a place to go, friends and family, if you've got children, if you've got pets, if you've got a lot of stuff to get out, take advantage of that. Pre-plan that and get out early. You don't need to wait for that evacuation notice from us.
Any other comments from the panel? I want to please join me in thanking all of these folks for taking that time and everything they do every day to protect us and our families and our homes. So thank you all. Thanks for being here tonight. Thanks for all the excellent questions. And we're around to answer more questions. So if any of you want to come up after, and we'll make sure to get as much information back out to the community as we can. So thank you all.